That's right, yes, it's an old, haunted RAF airfield of the old RAF Lindholme, which is now HMP Lindholme. Now we're coming up to the back of it to be able to park the car, and just so that everybody knows, we have contacted the prison and they have told us that even though they can't fully say it's okay to walk there, they know that a lot of people do, and it's not a problem for them, and so they can't see it being a problem for us. But as it's still owned by the RAF, they have said that they can't say either way, but it should be okay. So we're going to go with should be okay. So we're coming up to the back of what used to be the old RAF Lindholme. And the reason that we're doing this is because if you saw our previous vlog, we had a look on Hatfield Moors for the crash site of the Vickers Wellington bomber W5557, which crashed unfortunately on the 27th of September 1941 as it was returning from a bombing mission. Now if you can look here, I know it's very bright sunshine, but there are lots of buildings all over that are still left over from when this was an RAF base. And here in this little hedge bit, again you absolutely can't see it with it being behind a hedge, there is an old underground bunker that somebody has turned into a home, and I believe it is currently up for sale. And there is one of the perimeter hedges of the old RAF Lindholme. So what we'll do is we'll tell you more stories about the Vickers Wellington bomber and a Halifax bomber as well, and the local stories that go with them as we go through on our walk. And this is the perimeter concretey bitty, isn't it, William? Yeah. Of the old RAF Lindholme base. Now apparently there was two main runways that are now in the farmers' fields, but you can see them if you go on Google Earth, which I did yesterday, and I'll try and put a picture up for you to see if I'm allowed. I'm not sure if I'm allowed yet, but I'll have to ask. Which is really interesting, because you can see quite clearly where the land is still scarred. Even though it is now farmers' fields, you can see that it was once an airbase, which is really cool. There's not much sign that it was an old airbase though. There's just lots of grass and farmland everywhere. We started our little adventure looking into RAF Lindholme and the Vickers bombers pilots in particular when we took a really odd photograph, didn't we, William, in Finningley Village? Yeah. And it was Easter morning and we were just out for a ride on William's new pony, and we took a photograph, and in the background there looked for all the world to be a grey shadowy figure. Now we are sensible, we know it was probably not a ghost, probably somebody walking, but just for fun we googled it and we came upon the legend of Lindholme Willy, didn't we? Yep. And Lindholme Willy was apparently on this very airbase during the 1950s and 1960s, and he used to approach other flight crew members or people working on the airfield, covered in blood, Polish chap in a flight suit, asking about the well-being of his crew before disappearing off into thin air. And we thought, what a remarkable story. So we started doing a bit more research. And again, if you've watched our past vlog, you'll see that a few days ago now, in the Easter holidays, we actually went to the site on the moors, which is less than a mile as the crow flies in that direction. I mean, this is a really bleak and desolate place. So unfortunately the poor men that had been on the bombing mission didn't actually make it back to this very airbase by literally a mile. It was such a sad story. 3 of the men died on impact. One of them died later the next day at Doncaster Royal Infirmary. 2 other men survived their injuries, one of which unfortunately was missing in action, presumed dead over the North Sea, and the other one went on to become an American citizen and passed away in America in 1991. Now, we always try and be as respectful as possible, so we will, like we did before, because we're talking about these really brave gentlemen, we will put their names up here because it's only a fitting memory, and we do want to be as respectful and as honourable to them as humanly possible, as well as sort of walking in their footsteps and having a good old look around what used to be their base. But we've also got another plane to talk about, which was a Halifax bomber. And there was a lot of local legends surrounding the two, and between the Halifax bomber and the Wellington bomber, a lot of the stories in local mythology have got mixed up. But with the help of who's now a very good friend, we've been able to uncover both of the stories, find out the personal elements of the people that were involved, and as we walk around we'll be able to tell you. We've reached the far corner of the field, of the airfield, and we think we've stumbled upon what might be the remains of the actual runway, because it's a really long, wide strip of concrete, and it's in the exact place where it should be, looking straight over the fields into the corner. So this is the long runway, which unfortunately I don't know my directions around here very well, but that does look to me like tarmac, and maybe the only surviving bit of runway that's left. And over there we have just spied what looks to be the old control tower. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a particularly good zoom and it's quite a bright day, so I'm not sure if this is going to pick it up, but again, I promise there is a control tower over there. And very surprisingly, we've actually found the end of the smaller runway. I absolutely did not believe that this would still be here. Did you, William?
No.
And the story that we have about this runway, which stretches all the way sort of diagonal across the other runway, which was part of this field, the reason why it's of importance to our story and our village is this. On the 31st of October 1944, the crew of this 1687 heavy conversion unit aircraft took off from Sandtoft Airfield at 6:56 hours to undertake a nighttime cross-country training flight. At around 8 o'clock, the port inner engine failed due to loss of oil pressure and was then shut down by the crew, and the propeller blade on the faulty engine was feathered. So basically, all this information about the Halifax LL226 and how it crashed is all online. However, it's a really sad story, isn't it, William?
Yeah.
Because the boys had set off from Sandtoft RAF base. They'd had problems with one of their propellers and one of their engines, so they turned back. As they turned back, their other engine and their other propeller also feathered, and so the crew on the ground, I believe, here at RAF Lindholme realised that this stricken plane was in trouble. So what they did was they actually told them to come into land here instead. But what happened, unfortunately, is that they missed this runway because of the state that the plane was in. Oh, there's the radar tower over there as well. They missed the runway completely. They nosedived through the corner of that hedge over there, and over the road, about 400-500 metres on from the end there, is a little bungalow that's sat alone in the middle of some trees. The plane unfortunately came to rest on top of that bungalow, killing its 2 inhabitants, and also a very unlucky aircrew member that was cycling past, presumably either on his way to or on his way back from the Hatfield Woodhouse area. So the plane came down, killing all of the crew on board, killing 2 civilians who are now remembered in Hatfield Woodhouse Cemetery, and also a poor chap that was just cycling along, minding his own business. And as soon as we heard that story, we realised that the initial story that we heard about our Wellington bomber coming down and killing civilians was probably untrue, and that the two legends had just got mixed up together, which unfortunately happened during those times. But look, now we can see the northern radar. That's just over the A614 from where we are at the moment. And there is the old radar, the northern radar, which is just opposite the road from the aerodrome on the A614. Huge building. I mean, I suppose it has to be if it's a radar.
Are you allowed to go in there?
No, I don't think we're allowed to go in there. But yeah, this has been a really, really nice adventure. And what's nice about this adventure is that we know sort of where everything is. Whereas when we went looking for the old plane, we had absolutely no idea where to find it. And at least something the size of an aerodrome, you do stand a chance of actually coming across the bits that you want to look into. So that's really, really good. So no, we can't walk that way, darling. That way is towards the prison, and out of respect, I don't think that we should go anywhere near there. We'll stick to the far end of the airfield. Now, we mentioned earlier about the crew of the Halifax. Because of our respect and because of our research, and also the two civilian people, over the next minute I will put up their names as well, because we do want to be as respectful as possible to all those who lost their lives.
So the Halifax bomber came down here?
It did, in that corner over there. I think it came down trying to hit the runway, but unfortunately didn't. And it ended up with its nose all crumbled, smashing through the hedge over there and then ending up on top of the house. Now, as awful as the story was, it was wartime, and that kind of story was repeated throughout the country where awful tragedies happen. I must say that this was an old airfield. You just wouldn't know looking at the surface of it now. It literally just looks like somebody's put a road around through some fields to be able to access their farming areas. You can't imagine that there was all those men and that this was a working operational RAF base with huge, great big Vickers Wellington bombers everywhere. You just can't imagine it.
You wouldn't know where all the bombs was as well going down here.
No, you wouldn't know where all the bombs were. I'm sure not many people knew where the bombs were kept. We are now taking a track through the middle of what would have once been the airfield, aren't we, William?
Yeah.
Which is quite amazing. So right now we have the possibility of being on top of the old runway, which would be amazing. And I just can't believe that something as huge as a runway can just disappear from sight, that you can't see it with your eyes where it was, or where the tracks even were at the side of it. It seems totally crazy. Oh look, we're coming up to the purge of modern society, fly tipping. Gosh, nowhere safe from it, is it? How disgusting. In the middle of all this beauty and all this land, people have dumped all of their rubbish. And so here we are back at the truck. Another adventure with regards to Lindholme Willy, all over and done with. We've had the pleasure of another absolutely gorgeous location that he's brought us to in our quest to be able to find out more about him. I still can't believe that this is an abandoned airfield. It really does just look like it's always been farmers' fields. But anyway, another adventure over. And we're not sure as to the actual existence of ghosts. Who is? But following the legends, hearing the real life stories of people that fought and unfortunately in some cases died in the war has been really, really fun. So who knows where our adventures will take us next. And what do you say, William?